So what's up guys, it's Ash here and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, I've got some custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-3-3 fourth variation. But just before we get started guys, as always, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop this a thumbs up, as it does really help me out. It's team of the season, so if you guys need any coins, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap and reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a nice 5% discount. Okay guys, so starting off with the custom tactics. For the defensive style, I like to have this on balance. This is because it gives you the best control over your defenders, so when you need to press and apply pressure, you're able to do that, and then when you want to drop back, be a little bit more passive, you're also able to do that. So by having this on balanced, it does give us a much greater control than the other settings would. Moving on to the width guys, I like to have this on 40. This is so we can primarily defend in a nice narrow and compact shape, which means we're going to be able to stop all those attacks through the middle and stop our opponents from just running right through us, but we still maintain that natural width so we can still cover the wider areas in case an opponent tries an attack down the wing. This is the main reason we don't lower the width to a crazy amount. So we primarily defend in a nice narrow shape, but we still have a bit of width to the defense as well. Moving on to the depth guys, I like to have this on 55. This is a really nice balanced defensive line in my opinion. It's neither too high or too deep, so if we have it like too low, then the defensive line becomes like super deep and we're always camped back in our box and we're always under a lot of pressure. And on the flip side, if we have the depth too high, then one through ball will absolutely destroy us, which is not ideal. So I kind of like to go for something in between where it's neither too high or too deep. Now moving on to build-up play guys, I like to have this on balance. This is because it's by far the most consistent and varied form of build-up. When you want to play slowly, you're able to do so, and then when you want to play a bit faster, you're also able to do that. So it does give you a lot more variety and variation in attack that the other settings don't give you. For example, if you use fast build-up, you're always going to have to play quickly, and the same with like slow build-up, you're always going to have to play slowly. But with balance, you can pick and choose when you want to play quickly and when you want to play a little bit slower. Moving on to chance creation guys, I like to use direct passing. This is because it's by far the most meta option in the game. Basically with direct passing, your attacking players will like bunch up against the defenders, so you can do the very overpowered 1v1 isolation plays, which will create you a lot of chances. Players also make those extra movements in the box so you can get off that extra pass to guarantee the goals and minimize the chance of the goalkeeper saving a shot. Moving on to the attacking width guys, I like to have this on 48. Not really a specific number you want to use, but I kind of like to go between like 40 and 50 anywhere. Between there is pretty good in my opinion, but the reason I go with like 48 is because I don't want to have my width crazy high to the point where it feels like there is a massive distance between every player on my team, because it becomes very difficult to play simple passes that way. And on the flip side, I don't want the width crazy low, otherwise it makes the wide 4-3-3 like super narrow, which is not good either. So I kind of like to go for 48 as it keeps it nice and balanced. Moving on to players in box guys, I have this on 4. This is so we can get some players into the penalty area to create those chances of course, but at the same time we don't overcommit the entire team to the point where we're always getting counter-attacked and leaking extra goals. As for corners and free kicks, I have these both on 1 because there's a corner kick routine that I use which requires these to be on 1, link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now moving on to the players you want to use guys, in the striker position I like to go for a nice well-rounded striker. This is because it is obviously a one striker formation, so where you could get the balance between two strikers in a two striker formation, you have to get that all in one player in a one striker formation, or like that's how I feel at least. So I like to go for a nice well-rounded player so that they can kind of do the job of two strikers, because what I do in a two striker formation is I have like one creative player and then a clinical finisher. So I kind of like to get that all in one player so that they're able to shoot on either foot, have a bit of dribbling ability, pass like quite well, and obviously also have a bit of physicality. So it just like restricts you a lot less in the attack when you have a nice well-rounded striker. That being said, if you want to go for like a tall striker so you can just lump crosses, that will also work because this is obviously a 4-3-3 with wingers, so you can just cross the ball, but I like to go for somebody well-rounded. Moving on to the wingers, this is pretty self-explanatory. I suggest just going for like the fast wingers, the players players with good dribbling ability, the 5-star skills if you can get it, and even players that can finish off the chances, because there is a lot of times where these wingers will actually go into the penalty area and get themselves into decent shooting positions. So you do want them to be able to finish off the chance, but basically just use whichever wingers you prefer. Moving on to the cam, it's important that you use a nice creative player or somebody that you're comfortable with, because the cam is the main playmaker in the team. You're not going to want to use somebody that is like slow and clunky and has no creative ability, otherwise you're going to struggle to create chances, as the cam's job is to create all those chances. So you want to make sure you use somebody with good attacking ability so that you are able to create those chances. Moving on to the left centre mid, I like to go for a more defensive minded midfielder. This is somebody that is going to stay back and be as defensive as possible. So I would suggest somebody with a medium high work rate if you can get it, as you get the maximum contribution in defence and then not too bothered about going forward. But I just like to make sure that this player is as good defensively as possible. Moving on to the right centre mid, to balance it out, I like to go for a more box to box centre midfielder. So this is somebody that is going to attack and defend and have a bit of a free role in the team. So I would suggest somebody with a high work rate if you can get it, so you get that maximum contribution in both the attack and the defense, but just ensure that this player has a nice well-rounded card so that they're capable of doing a bit of everything. Moving on to the fullbacks, I like to go for a balance between the two. So in the left back position, I go for somebody that's a bit more technical in Roberto Carlos, somebody that might be a little bit better on the ball, able to pass, sometimes shoot, whatever, just like a bit more of an offensive fullback. And then in the right back position, I like to go for somebody that's not very good in attack but is a lot more solid in defense, but that's just something I like to do. It doesn't really matter, you can use whoever you want in the fullback positions. As for the centre backs and the keeper, these just need to be the full meta players. You guys know the types of players you should be using at this point. Now moving on to the player instructions, guys, as far as the player instructions go for my videos, these are actually quite basic, but I'm going to talk you through them anyway. So starting off with the striker, I like to have him on stay central and mixed attack. We have him on stay central because obviously he is our striker, so we don't want him drifting off into those wider areas. We want to make sure he's in the correct position where the striker should be, which is why we do keep him central. I also have him on mixed attack as opposed to getting behind, as I feel like you get a lot more out of the player this way. When you put them on mixed attack, they seem to make a lot more diverse runs, they seem to do a lot more in the build-up, and it just seems to be a lot easier to attack. If you put them on getting behind, they're always making the same one-dimensional predictable runs, and it is very easy for like a top-tier opponent to defend against that. So mixed attack does just make the attack better in my opinion. Moving on to the right winger and the left winger, I just leave these on the complete default settings. Now the reason I leave them on the default settings is because I don't like restricting the wingers. I don't always want to tell them to like stay wide, for example, and I also don't want to always tell them to cut inside. I kind of want them to do a bit of everything. The same way with like balanced crossing runs, I don't want them to always get into the penalty area, and I don't want them to always stay outside the box. So I kind of just like to leave it on balance so that they can kind of do a bit of everything, and I kind of just give them a bit more freedom, and I just find the attack to be a lot more free flowing that way. So left winger and right winger default settings. Moving on to the cam, I also have the default settings, and it's kind of for the same reasons as the winger. I kind of don't want to restrict this player all that much. I want to let him do his own thing. I want him to work. I want him to do a bit of everything. So I don't like to restrict him and make him do specific instructions, as I feel that limits the creativity of the formation. So we also just leave the cam alone. Moving on to the left centre mid, the more defensive minded midfielder, we have him on stay back while attacking and cover centre. We have him on stay back while attacking because obviously he's a more defensive minded player, so we don't want him going forward, and then we have him on cover centre so he does defend those central areas. Moving on to the right centre mid, where we've got a more box to box style player, we leave him on the default settings and put him on cover centre. We leave him on the default settings because again, we don't really want to restrict this player all that much. He does have a bit of a free role in the team, so we kind of just let him do his own thing, and then we just put him on cover centre so he does defend those central areas. Moving on to both the fullbacks, I have them on stay back while attacking and overlap. The reason we have them on stay back is so we're as defensively sound as possible, and because the 4-3-3 is already a wide formation, we don't need to always worry about getting that extra width in attack, which means we can afford to keep these players back. We do put them on the overlap run type though, so if we do send them forward, they will add extra width to the team. But yeah, pretty basic for the fullbacks. As for the centre backs and the keeper, these are on the default default settings and I do not touch them, guys. But yeah, they're my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-3-3. If you have enjoyed or found it useful, please be sure to drop this a thumbs up, sub to the channel if you are new, and don't forget to turn on notifications. And with all that aside, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.